Okay, so before I begin, just want to introduce you guys to myself. My name is Sarah. I work in the marketing department at Lumaprints. You guys have probably seen me in the past few webinars. I'll be leading the webinar today, and I have Lindsay here, who's going to be also my co-host slash moderator. She's also in the marketing team. And in the participant group, we also have our CEO, Ken, as well as other team members who are here just in case you guys have any questions about anything, including our services and products. So we're going to go ahead and get started. If you guys have any questions at any time, feel free to unmute yourselves and share your questions. Or if you would like, you can use the chat box as well. So it looks like we are seeing, okay, that's just Lindsay saying hi to everyone. We'll go ahead and get started, guys. All righty, just want to make sure you guys can see that on your end. Perfect. Awesome. Okay, so like I stated, this webinar is going to be on strategic pricing. We're just going to talk about some ways you should be considering in terms of all the products that you are putting onto your site and ways that you can price them. I know we get this question a couple different times, so we thought it'd be an interesting topic to share with you guys today. And today we'll be talking about a few things here. I just want to kind of share the roadmap and see where we're going to be doing here today with you guys. So first, I'll talk about understanding your costs, specifically the product costs, as this will basically be the base of your pricing. Secondly, we'll talk about knowing your market, setting up the markets appropriately, because that is important when setting up your prices. It's just understanding your customer segment. Next, we'll also talk about additional costs and how shipping and other expenses should be considered when you're creating the pricing for your products. And lastly, of course, we'll always end with some Q&As in case you guys have any questions. All right, so to begin, um, as you guys all know, it is important to understand why pricing needs to be properly acknowledged. A goal of a business, of course, is to gain profit at the end of the day. So as most of you guys may be aware, profit equals revenue minus costs. Now, since pricing is actually an element that plays into the revenue aspect, that in turn will be the profit that in turn will affect your profit. And of course, profit is the money that you get to pocket. So it is definitely important to look into this along with costs. So speaking of costs, let's start with one type of cost first. And this is the base of starting your pricing. But before we do, there are different types of costs to consider when pricing. This includes how much the product or service will cost you. Another is how much shipping will cost. This can be whether you want to cover it for your customer or if you want to do it yourself. Another is how much your platform costs. So like Shopify or Etsy, whatever fees they request of you. Another is taxes as well, if that applies to you. And another is just how much you value your time at the end of the day. And of course, there's so much more variable costs that comes into working on your products. So that can include like program subscriptions, like if you use Adobe to create some of your digital designs and so forth. So for this first part alone, we will just talk about the product cost to set up your base pricing. We will address most of these other costs later in the webinar. So as we go through each section, I will just show you the elements that are playing into your price. So here we are using the cost of the products as your base pricing. First, we would recommend going on to lumaprints.com and taking a note of the products you want to offer to your customers. One important note, though, is to go through the whole ordering process for some of the products you're interested in and see if there's any add-ons that you'd like to add to those products, like, say, the canvas, you'd like a hanging wire, or you want a foam underlayer. So these are all going to have additional extra fees that you'd like to add to the product itself. So make sure you go through the process and note those down as well to add those to your base pricing of your product costs. So as you're noting these down, I would recommend that you use something like Excel or Google Sheets, which I'll be showing you right now. Okay. You guys can see that on your end. Perfect. Great. So Here you can see I noted back in webinar 2, we had a hipster cat, so I'm sticking with it. I noted the product that I want to offer and some product types that I'm looking forward to. Here I have 2 different product types for this example. I have archival matte paper, and I also have a 0.75-inch canvas print with a hanging wire. I also have a variety of sizes as well. And with that said, I included the product cost from lumaprints.com for each of these products. And then here you can see, because the hanging wire is an add-on, I included that in the total of the product cost itself. So as you guys see here, this is going to build up into like the suggested retail price that I was going to talk about. So for now, this is where the base product price should be. Okay, so let me go back to the PowerPoint. All right, perfect. So as you can see in the example here, we have an 8x10 archival map paper. It goes for $2.90. So that will be as a start of the product price. Of course, here's the very least of what your customers must pay for the product, since this is how much the product costs to you. But of course, as a business, you'd actually like to make profit. So next, we'll go ahead and talk about understanding your market to define your markup that will be added to add that profitability for yourself. But before I do, I just want to take a little pause here and see if there's any questions that anyone has, both in the chat, or feel free to unmute yourself. So let me go ahead and check with Lindsay. Has there been any questions in the chat? No? All right, perfect. Let's go ahead and move on. So now that we'll be talking about getting to just know your market in order to set up the markups appropriately. Setting your markups to gain profitability involves so many considerations. So, you just want to make sure you price things fairly, so you actually get sales, but also competitively just to gain the most out of profitability. Okay, so to set up a markup in a way, you can just use a standard markup as a start. This is just adding a markup of 100% or 200%, which basically results in doubling or tripling the product cost respectively. Now, of course, once you start with that standard markup, you don't necessarily want to just end there per se. You probably want to consider the market and see if this price point needs to be adjusted to fit your customer base's spending habits. So one way to do this is to research similar listings. Take a look at those established stores amongst your peers, see what similar designs they do, and check how they're pricing their designs. If these stores have high sale numbers, you can comfortably say it's a good reference for understanding what kind of price point that type of customer is willing to spend. For the next step, this kind of goes hand in hand with the last one, of course, understanding your customer segment. So if your designs are for, like you'd say, younger teens or young adults, you may want to consider a lower markup so that the overall price is affordable for them to purchase. Now, if you have a more sophisticated customer, including collectors of works who are willing to purchase prints at a higher price point, then you should consider increasing your markup. Also, you'll notice that some products can be considered a premium for those willing to pay more. So say the canvas prints could be a premium product versus the paper prints. So you can always adjust your markups by product as well as sizes. So let me go ahead and share again that Excel sheet that I was just at. Righty here. So now we're at step 2 of the markup here. As you can see, I have an archival map paper and then the canvas print. I just simply put 100% markup in my calculations here, which just basically takes the cost itself and then together doubles the price, the suggested retail price. Like I said, you're more than welcome to adjust the markups for different products. If you feel like the canvas print, like I stated, is a more premium product, you can definitely increase that. Now, if you recall earlier, I did talk about comparing like other artists have similar designs. So I looked up an artist with some whimsical animals on Etsy. This particular artist had over 100 sales and they just started in 2023. So I just took a look and they had a slim canvas, which I opted would be closer to the 0.75-inch. And here are the range of sizes that they offer and the costing for them. So taking a look at that 16 by 24, for example, at a $60 price point. And you can see that we're kind of a bit lower there than them, so we can adjust our prices as needed. You can change it on your formula or your calculations here. So now that I kind of increased the markup, that I'm getting a little closer to what they're offering. But of course, I haven't considered the additional costs such as shipping or any platform fees, so I'm holding off on that a little bit for now. But as you can see here for the 24 by 30, I'm taking a comparison right now with just 100% markup. I'm at $70, but I'm looking at a 20 by 30 here. They're offering it for 90, or even if you're getting as close to 24 by 36, close to $103. So it's safe to say that I can at least increase the size of this really big product here. So if I do go, oops, that's a little too large there. Let me go ahead that gets a little bit closer to that $90 price point. So one rule of thumb that we also say is that you can also offer a premium price or a higher markup for the bigger sizes compared to the smaller sizes. So with big prices, you get within the big sizes, it's a good way to do it. It gets you a little more profitability. And for the small sizes, you can have a lower markup, but it will garner more sales, which still could help with your profit overall as well. So let me go back again to our PowerPoint. So in this example for now, for an 8 by 10 archival map paper, I just did the 100% markup. Yes, I could have adjusted this as well based on my knowledge, but I figured as an 8 by 10 paper, $5 is a good starting point, considering the other costs that are going to go forward into this as well. So just for the fourth point here, I just want you guys to know that over time, you'll see how your customers are responding to your prices as well. So if you do notice a few sales, you may consider lowering the markup. If you're noticing, of course, a higher quantity of sales, you may consider increasing your markup to make more profits. Just be adaptable to the potential changes that you see in your market. And then what's great about pricing is that it's flexible at the end of the day. You can change it however you'd like. And so now that that's the second point of what adds to your suggested retail pricing, I just want to take a pause again, check if there's any questions on the chat, or if you want to unmute yourselves and share your questions, you're welcome to do so as well. Just checking in with Lindsay. She's great help. She helps me let me know if there's anything in the chat. So it looks like everything is good to go. We can move on to the next point of this discussion. So now that we have talked about the product costs and just marking up your product as well to shape the retail price, we're looking to the other factor, which is considering other expenses when building into your product price. So there's definitely some additional costs to consider, like I talked about earlier in this presentation. One of them is shipping. You can either place it for your customer, but we actually recommend building shipping into the retail price itself for your customer, because customers are, as you can imagine, more willing to purchase free shipping items. Additional item that you want to consider within your costs is, of course, some platforms requiring a fee. Now, what I am aware of is that Shopify requires a subscription fee to sell on their platform. And Etsy itself has a listing fee. And on top of that, they take percentage out of each sale. And then in both cases, I believe there's like transaction fees as well with what customers use, whether it's credit cards or so forth. And so it's just be considerate about the pricing fees that are required from these platforms that you're using to sell your products. So you should definitely consider adding them into your pricing so you can gain the profitability that you see fit. So with that said, that profitability actually relates to your time. So the profitability after all of the costs you've considered should include the time and value you put into your designs. This can be covered in the markup, or you can even add it in the additional costs as well. So profitability at the end of the day should be the value of your time. So let me go ahead and move on to the shipping calculator. So when it comes to shipping costs, like stated earlier, we recommend building it into your retail pricing. The idea of free shipping is always enticing to your customer, so you might as well consider adding it into your pricing itself. Well, how to do so is we recommend logging into your account, your lumaprints.com account, and navigating to the shipping calculator. And from there, you can enter the product you want along with these two recommended zip codes. We have 10001 for New York. This happens to be the farthest state from us in California, and 04938 for a rural area in Maine, since we've come to discover that rural locations would actually trigger a slightly more in shipping. So I'm going to go ahead and show this example in the Excel sheet as well. So as you can see here, I went ahead and added additional cost using that shipping calculator. So first I use a column with New York, and I use a column to that rural area in Maine. As you can see, some products may share the same shipping, but you can see in other products as well, the shipping starts to trigger a little bit more. So in this example, however, I went ahead and just added the additional cost of shipping from New York, or to New York, sorry, along with the markup and the product cost. So this is now my end all build up of a suggested retail price, considering all my costs and my markup. So depending on what you, of course, choose to go with, whether it's the New York zip code or the rural zip code to cover all your bases, it's totally fine, because any customer that your product is shipped to that is closer than these two locations, you'll end up just gaining that profitability out of that as well. So this is why we suggest using the New York zip code or the rural zip code to kind of build into your pricing. So as you guys can see here, the suggested retail price of the 8x10 paper print ended up being $12.24. So let me go ahead and share that with you guys here as well. So now with these three aspects of the base product cost, which is $2.90, the markup, which is just doubling that product cost, and then the shipping cost to New York is included, the whole total is $12.24. So that's where my suggested retail price is starting off at. But as you consider final pricing considerations, you can of course consider cleaning up that pricing to something more similar. So as you have seen in the prices that are more of norm, I guess, you would probably go ahead and round it up to the next number or so. In this case, I just did 15, or some people have used the 99-cent ending, which is 14.99, which actually there's been studies that show that a 1 cent difference can actually increase sales. So that's just a food for thought there. And also you should consider the filters on the website and where your products would stand based on that price filter. I'll kind of show a little bit more. You guys saw that a bit when I shared the Excel sheet, but I'll show it once again. And also use this point to consider any additional costs that you want to add into the final price. So let me go ahead and share my Excel sheet one last time. Okay. So here I went ahead and quote unquote cleaned my pricing. So this is where the suggested retail price was, with all those 3 points of the base product cost, the markup that I choose to put to it, and then the shipping to New York. It all added up to what this is as a starting point. But like I said, just to clean it up, I rounded it up to 14.99, and then I just cleaned up and added a few more here myself, as you can see. And one of the things I talked about is consider the filters that are being used in whatever site or platform you're using. Etsy, for example, has a filter that shows under 50, 50 to 200, etc. So if I were to not do the 99-cent option and I had this at 50, I would have lost like some price conscious customers at this point, even if it's a 1 cent difference. So it's probably important to consider like little things like this to help consider the customers that you may be missing if people are filtering by prices as well. So at the end of that all, like in the very beginning of the meeting, we talk about profit equals revenue minus cost. So my revenue is the price that I settled with, which is $14.99. And I subtracted my cost, which is just the product cost and the additional cost. In this case, I just use shipping, but I could add the other transaction fees, platform fees, etc. And this is my profit. And as you're taking a look at your profit, you to yourself, you can take a look at it and say, Does this make sense to you? Do you feel like you would need to build more into this final retail price? You can always add or reduce as much as you need at the end of the day. Again, this is a perfect way to see whether you have valued like the time that is inputted as well. Like, is this fair to say per unit how much profit I'll be getting on this product as well? So those are just a few things that we wanted to share in terms of what to add into your profit or into your product pricing at the end of the day, and how to help, build that profitability, gain some knowledge on kind of the materials that you should consider, the research that you need to implement. That's basically it in terms of what I wanted to talk about. But if you guys have any questions, of course, you guys are welcome to feel free to share now. If anyone wants to add more information, you guys can as well. We can have an open discussion about this topic. And yeah, so I'll just leave it open to you guys to share. I just want to make sure that no one is sending chats as well. Okay. I'm gonna stop sharing my screen then and be back up here. So yeah, thank you guys for joining. As always, we just want to say like, comment, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, as well as all our channels, social channels, being Facebook and Instagram as well. We're doing these webinars every week. So if you guys are subscribed to our newsletters, you should be getting the next topic. And also we tend to post things up on our socials as well, so you guys can get a heads up on this webinar. But we're going to go ahead and stay here for a little bit more, see if there's any questions in the chat, or if you guys want to unmute yourself and share any more topics that you'd like to hear from us. We're open to that as well. So yeah, thank you guys for joining. Appreciate all your help. Lindsay and the team as well. And yeah, we'll be here. Feel free to unmute yourself or share on the chat if you have any questions. Be happy to hear from you guys.